Welcome to Garage 23, and this is our 2005 Nissan Titan, and hopefully we're gonna get it running today. Let's go. Okay, first thing on the list is gonna be bolting up the torque converter, since we can do that now because this engine spins. So let's get our very special little 14mm bolts. Those stubby guys, they're shy. Get these back in place. Yeah, you're gonna have to get down here. Okay, so now we have access to the torque converter bolts, and first thing we need to do is try to find the bolt location on the torque converter to line up with that hole that we can see in the opening. Luckily there's enough room for activities here, so we can like spin the torque converter by hand if we reach behind it. Now we just need to watch and see where the bolt location lines up with that hole. I think we just passed it. Yeah, there it is. So now our bolt goes in there. Oh, thank God. I was beginning to worry that the flex plates were different diameters or something. And we tighten that guy down. And looks like we're gonna have to hold the other end from the crank. And we got a 19mm socket on a breaker bar, so we can hold the crank end of this. So now we can actually tighten this a little better. Now it's the first one, so now we can actually turn the engine and get to the other 3 bolts. So we're just gonna keep spinning this around. Here's bolt number 2. Let's go for 3. All right, so we got all 4 bolts tightened down for the torque converter. Now we can put our little cover thingy back in place. I usually don't even bother putting this back on most of my cars, but considering this is a truck and it's more likely that it would see mud and dirt and junk, it's probably good that we put this back. And it just goes right there. There.
Here comes the bull.
Okay, while we're down here, we're gonna go ahead and take the oil drain plug off and leave the oil to drain while we do stuff up top. Hopefully there's oil in here and it hasn't all leaked. That's the other big issue, is it's been leaking like all over the yard and the garage. So I'm guessing it's been moved around so much that the lower oil pan, it's been resealed, but I guess just from moving it around so much, it's started leaking again, like the silicone like shifted or something. Because the oil pan is pretty banged up, because this thing's been laying on the ground for a while and we've been dragging it around the ground. Probably just need to reseal it. So we're gonna leave that and move on to the top of the engine. So we had to take the intake manifold off to get the engine in here, and in doing so, we discovered that we have a little surprise. We have a brand new starter, which is awesome because that's like one of the biggest pain in the asses on these engines, because, well, look where the starter is. Freaking middle of everything. You gotta take the intake manifold off to replace it. So, sweet little bonus that we got a brand new one. We probably don't gotta worry about that for a while. So the starter is held on with 2 14mm bolts. All right, so that's the 2 bolts holding it on. And now we could start putting the other stuff back together. Starting with our wiring harness. And on the back of here, there's a 12mm nut that goes to like this distribution plate basically. So that lets you separate the wire that goes to the solenoid from the wiring harness. So we need to reattach that. All right, so then we put this part of the harness behind here on the stud that sticks out of this distribution block. Okay, there we go. And then 12mm nut. Now, next thing up is gonna be the heater hoses. Luckily, we left our hose clamps in place over here. So these, I guess we should still leave them there. We're gonna put our hose on this side and this side. Now we can put our hose clamps in place. Ow! Definitely need bigger pliers. Jeez. Those are some strong hose clamps. There we go. You work on your grip strength for that one. All right, now next thing we gotta do is remove this old cam position sensor because this engine already has one in place. There we go. Just needed some giant oversized pliers. All right, now we can plug this in behind the cylinder head. There we go. Would have been preferable to hear a nice click, but this thing's pretty gummed up, so let's just hope it stays in place. Now, I guess we can go ahead and plug in our coil packs. And this is going to be our knock sensor. And then some EGR thing, our MAF sensor, throttle body. We got a ground here, which we could do that right now. Okay, and we got our AC compressor way down there. And I think that's it for back here. What's interesting is this only has one cam sensor, which most VQs and HRs actually have 2 cam sensors or even 4 on the newer models. So interesting that it only has one. Keep it simple, I guess. Let's do the coil packs on this side. The harness bolts on to the valve cover there. A 10mm bolt. Okay, now we're gonna reinstall our oxygen sensors. And for these, I'm just gonna go in through the sides, through the wheel wells, because there seems to be enough space to access the header from there. And then we'll plug it in at the top here. It looks like we got a decent amount of room on this side at least. The other side was a little annoying because there's a bunch of brake lines in the way. Okay, both our oxygen sensors are plugged in and as tight as they're gonna get. So now I think we're ready for the intake manifold. And this just kind of slides on back in here. Okay. I think that's more or less in place. There we go.
Wank.
Oh my God, that was a 10mm. Look where it stopped. That was a close call. That'd have been awesome if it fell all the way back in under the intake manifold. I'm gonna switch to the Craftsman one. And so this is my nice 10mm, and this one actually kind of locks in. It's probably the most tedious part of this because there's like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 bolts holding this thing on. And you gotta thread your socket in there to get to them. Okay, now we got the intake manifold all bolted up so we can plug in our injectors, all 8 of them. Oh, no click for that one. All right, 7 out of 8 clicks, not bad. Now, the brake booster. Now our fuel line. Oh, that was a nice click. Then this emissions doohickey, which we already got over here. What else? Oh, throttle body. No click from that guy either. Only one that's left over here is going to be our mass airflow sensor, which is going to go on after we have our intake in place. And I think that's it for up here. We got our power steering sensor over here. Oh, actually, we got a couple little hoses down here for our throttle body. Right there. And over here. All right, and this is gonna be our mass airflow sensor. Oh, nice click on that one. And need something to tighten this down. Gonna have to be another thing we're gonna get is a new air filter. We still got a couple of hoses left over here that we need to replace, but they were kind of crusty on the old engine, so we're gonna grab some new ones for that. And then now all we got left to do is, oh, we gotta put the crank sensor back on and then try to take the oil pan off. And we'll probably reuse the old oil pan because that one's not all dented up, but it's got a bunch of glitter in it, so we'll probably have to clean that out very well before we put it in. And then reseal it, put it back up, throw oil in it, and then we'll be ready to crank it, see if it does stuff, see if it makes noises. Okay, so we got this middle cross member off, which we need to remove to get to the rear bolts for the oil pan. And I'm gonna take the oil pan off. Ooh, gross. So that right there is a good sign that this wasn't sealed up very well, because we shouldn't be able to just pop it off like that. You should have to like get a flathead screwdriver or chisel almost or something and pry it out of there, but this came off relatively easy. So now we need to clean up all this mating surface and then prep our new oil pan with some new RTV silicone and hand tighten it and leave it. We're probably just gonna leave it sitting all night just to cure completely, and then we can put oil in it. Okay, so we got our original oil pan actually cleaned up now, and it's definitely in much better shape. It's not really dented or anything. Now we got the mating surface on this all cleaned up. Just hit it with the wire brush and got all the old crusty silicone off. The orange stuff is not what you're supposed to use for an oil pan. This gray one I believe should be good for oil. So Nissan uses in just about everything on the engine, so better than the orange one at least. So we're just gonna lay a bead all the way around. All right. And then we're gonna take our 10 millimeter bolts and just hand tighten them. Not even like super hand tight, just just until the silicone starts squeezing out of the edges a little bit. And then we're gonna leave it and let it cure for pretty much a whole day. And then we'll come back and fill it with oil and see if we can start this thing. Okay, so we're gonna take our oil pan and try not to drop it like a piece of buttered toast, because with our luck it will land silicone side down. Okay, then we're gonna try to get a bolt in here and try to get one on the other side. All right, now we can put the rest on. So as you can see, we're getting a little bit of silicone squeezing out of the edges, and that's exactly what you want. All right, so we're gonna let that sit and come back tomorrow. Okay, flash forward about 24 hours, and our silicone is all nice and cured. You can see it doesn't get stuck to my finger anymore. So now we can go ahead and crank down all of these 10mm bolts, and then we'll be done here. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put that cross member back, and then we still need to button up the exhaust to the headers, and then we'll be ready to go. All right. Okay, now for the oil change portion of this job, we're gonna replace our crappy Fram oil filter. It's so cool that it has this little ramp built in to like funnel oil. What's funny is this is a 2005 and it has this nice little detail, and our Patrol is a 2019 and the oil just drips all over the sway bar. It doesn't have this. I'd say it works pretty well. Okay, now we get our nice new OEM filter. Hecho en Mexico. And we lubricate the seal with some of our new oil. And of course I got oil all over it. That'll do. Now to fill it up with oil. Okay, now we're gonna put our alternator back on. Not that we're gonna put our serpentine belt on right now, but I just kind of want it in place and the power lead connected, just so it's not like, because we're gonna connect the battery and the battery connects to this, and I don't want this potentially shorting out against something. So we're just gonna install this all and leave it how it goes so we can try to test fire it, see what happens. And I don't think that's how it went. Okay, I guess we'll just try to put that on after. Okay, moment of truth. I replaced the battery terminal, connected the negative battery cable to the engine, and the only battery with any juice that we got is this one that's probably entirely too small for this thing, but let's give it a shot. Well, it's not sizzling, so that's a good sign. All right, so it's not gonna start right away. I disconnected all the injectors just because we don't know how long this engine's been sitting, and it would be better if we just try and circulate some oil first and then see if it'll start. So we're just gonna crank it, and hopefully it at least cranks. Oh, beepy noises. Oh, it turns. I don't think that battery has enough juice though. Need more power. I'll grab the battery out of the Ultima. All right. Oh, got beepy noises. Gauges turn on. Oh, throttle body works, so that means the ECU is doing stuff. Okay. Now let's plug all the injectors in and cross our fingers again. Okay. Oh, it's doing stuff. Okay, I think this is gonna be it. Sheesh. So it's got a lot of vacuum leaks. I'm wondering if that's the main issue here. Because I didn't connect the valve cover breather, so there's two big ports here that aren't connected. I'm just gonna throw those hoses on, see if that helps. Okay. We're only missing one other hose, and that's the PCV for this side. And I had to cut the hose off, so I don't have any hose that fits that. But with those two on, it should help if that is the issue. Man. I'm wondering if I might just be low on fuel too, because it doesn't say it's like empty. It says it's like almost empty, but maybe it does just need fuel. Throttle body works. Bit. Yay! It did stuff. Not to puke out anything. I think it's fine. Come on. Oh no. Can't get out. What do you mean, uh-oh? Oh, crap. Oh, it's just transmission fluid.
It was smoking too. Does that have water?
The smoke's normal because we've put our grimy hands all over the exhaust manifold and stuff, so as it heats up it's gonna start smoking because of all the grease on it, but that's normal. That's not great, but also normal because one of these clamps came off. Well, that's another one of my worries, if the transmission worked or not, which, I mean, if the engine blew up in the middle of the desert, transmission probably worked, but I was still a little concerned about it. These trucks have some kind of issue where like reverse won't work, but everything else will, and this one, as you saw, moved backwards, so I think we're good. It was moving forward a little bit too, so. Sorry, I'm tired. It's late. Always do your best, yada yada, do the thing. You know the drill. See you guys.
できなかった人はちゃんと復習するようにね。